Okay, dumako naman tayo sa domain and range ng isang function. So from the last discussion, na-define natin na ang set of inputs ay called domain and the set of outputs is called range. So, i-dig deep natin ang domain. So, ang domain ay ng isang function ay set of all numbers for which the rule makes sense. So, pag sinabi natin makes sense, magiging defined as a real number yung ating output. So, yung range naman is the function, a set of all possible values of f of x which represents the y as x varies throughout the given domain. So, ang aim natin sa pagkuha ng domain is ano ba yung mga magiging defined values lamang. So, pag naging undefined, which is infinity, kapag nagkaroon tayo ng denominator na 0, so kapag nagkaroon tayo ng imaginary numbers, pag hindi na naging real number yung sagot natin, ibig sabihin, hindi na siya kasama dun sa ating domain. So, ang main focus is of course to find the domain. So, pwede rin naman natin kunin ang range algebraically, pero mas maganda kasi siyang kinukuha or the best to know how or the best to know the range is through graphing. So, minsan kasi meron tayong mga very complicated equations na it's really hard for us to identify or to solve for the value of y in terms of x or x in terms of y. Kaya, mas maganda pa rin na makuha ang range through graphing. So, ang focus natin ngayon is to find the domain of a function. So, para mas madali nating ma-solve or makuha ang domain ng function, ika-categorize natin siya. So, paano natin i-represent ang domain? So, dito, pwede nating functional, pwede nating i-represent ang function as interval notation, yung merong bracket at saka open and close parenthesis. Or pwede namang via inequality. So, kakategorize natin ito into cases. So, punta tayo sa case 1. So, paano kung ang given function is a polynomial? So, meaning to say, di ba pag sinabi natin polynomial, ang exponent natin ay laging integers. Walang negative, positive integers. Walang negative, including 0, I mean. So, kapag may negative exponent or fractional exponent, it is no longer considered as a polynomial. So, if f of x is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 3, pag polynomial, automatic, ang domain natin is a set of all real numbers. So, meaning to say, lahat ng value ng x ay pwede. So, interval notation, that is negative infinity to positive infinity. Bakit open parenthesis and close parenthesis? Bakit hindi bracket? Kasi hindi naman natin ma-reach ang infinity. Kaya, laging ang notation natin doon ay open and close parenthesis. So, ito yung tinatawag nating interval notation. So, kasi kahit anong value ang isubstitute natin dyan, ang function of x will always be defined. So, kasi pag nilagay mong infinity, undefined na. Kasi infinity is not defined. Or you cannot define infinity. So, that is when the function is a polynomial. So, paano natin kukunin ang range nito? So, i-express natin muna yung y as a function of x. So, para makuha natin ang range, kukunin natin ang x as a function of y. So, ngayon, paano natin siya kukunin? So, from y is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 3, pwede natin i-transpose yung 3 on the left side, magiging y minus 3 is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 3. So, na-transpose na natin yung 3, so, i-delete na natin yung 3. So, now, magagamit na tayo ng completing the square. So, how do we complete the square? Again, i-divide natin ito by 2, then i-erase natin yung answer sa second power. So, ibig sabihin, magkakaroon ako dito ng x squared plus 4x plus 4. So, that is, must be added on both sides. So, magiging itong y minus 3. Also, mag-a-add din ako dyan ng 4. So, magiging x plus 2 raised to the second power is equal to y plus 1. And then, x plus 2, extracting the roots, magkakaroon tayo ng x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus square root of y plus 1. So, pag transpose natin itong 2 on the right side, so magkakaroon tayo ng x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus square root of y plus 1. So, paano natin makukuha ang range? So, kahanapin natin ngayon ang lahat ng possible values na magiging defined ang square root. Actually, isa ito sa mga categories natin na i-discuss natin dito. So, pwede natin siyang balikan mamaya. So, ano ang case number 2? If the function is in the form f of x over g of x. So, remember, babalikan natin ito mamaya pag na-discuss na natin yung case na merong square root. So, function is in the form of f of x over g of x. So, di ba, sabi natin sa definition ng domain, so lahat ng posibleng value ng x para ang ating magiging sagot will always be defined. So, since meron tayong denominator, at di ba ayaw natin na ang denominator ay equal sa 0. So, therefore, for us to locate the domain, dapat daw to find the domain, so g of x must not be equal to 0. So, here's an example. So, f of x is x minus 2 over x plus 3. So, burahin ko nga ito. So, again, to find the domain, dapat ang denominator natin should be kept not equal sa 0. So, because if this happens to be 0, magiging undefined na ang ating function. So, meaning to say, x plus 3 must be set not equal to 0. And then try to solve for the value of x. We have x must not be equal to negative 3. So, ibig sabihin, this is the only value of x that must be excluded from the value of x na magiging defined ang ating function. So, since x must not be equal to negative 3, so therefore, the domain must be negative infinity up to negative 3 excluded kasi x must not be equal to negative 3. Union with negative 3 to positive infinity. Kasi lahat po pwede except sa negative 3. So, paano natin man makukuha ang range? So, same lang din dun sa kanina. So, again, ang main focus lang naman natin ay domain. So, kasi minsan may mga function na mahirap i-express yung y from y as a function of x papunta sa x to a function of y. So, since ito medyo madali lang, so pwede natin i-express ang x as a function of y. So, ang given natin from y is equal to x minus 3 over, x minus 2 over x plus 3. X minus 2. So, ano gagawin natin? So, ang gagawin lang natin is magka-cross multiply tayo. So, magkakaroon tayo ng y times the quantity x plus 3 equals x minus 2. So, i-distribute natin yung y. So, magiging y, i-rewrite ko lang. So, from the last, y times the quantity x plus 3 is equal to x minus 2. So, distributing y there. So, magkakaroon tayo ng xy plus 3y is x minus 2. Then, itatranspose lang natin yung x on the left side. So, magkakaroon tayo ng x, y, minus x is equal to negative 2 minus 3x. 3y. Transpose naman natin yung 3y on the right side. So, since x is common, I can factor that out. Y minus 1, that is equal to negative 2 minus 3y. Then, to solve for the value of x, i-divide ko lang siya both sides by y minus 1. So, magiging negative 2 minus 3y. Again, bakit ito naging minus 3y? Transpose natin itong 3y on the right side at yung x na to transpose natin on the left side. Then, i-divide natin siya both sides by y minus 1. So, na-express na natin ang x as a function of y. So, to find the range, so this is case 2, dapat daw yung denominator ko must not be equal to 0. Kasi kung hindi, magiging undefined yung function natin. So, ibig sabihin, y minus 1 must not be equal to 0. Try to solve for the value of y must not be equal to positive 1. So, therefore, ang ating range must be negative infinity to 1 union with 1 to infinity. So, dapat hindi siya equal sa positive 1. So, that must be the range of the given function. So, kasi nakuha natin, kasi mas madali lang naman natin siyang i-express as a function of y. What if, bigbigay pa tayo ng isa pang example. So, I have there y f of x is equal to x minus 2 all over x squared plus 4x plus 3. So, notice, yung denominator natin or ang ating function is in the form of a numerator divided by the denominator. So, para makuha natin ang domain, so we have to equate 4x plus 3, that's the denominator, to 0. Kasi nga, bawal maging 0 ang denominator. Para makuha ang domain, x should not be equal to 0. So, this is x plus 3, x plus 1 must not be equal to 0. So, that is, we factor the denominator para makuha natin yung domain. Then, makukuha natin yung mga critical values. X is equal to negative 3 and x is equal to negative 1. So, dapat ang denominator natin must not be equal to 0. So, ibig sabihin, x must not be equal to negative 3 and x must not be equal to negative 1. So, therefore, ang domain ng function natin, so, x must be negative infinity to negative 3 union with negative 3 to negative 1 union with negative 1 to infinity. So, kasi ang only excluded dun sa ating function para maging defined ay negative 3 and negative 1 only. So, other than that, pwede siya. Pasok siya dun sa ating domain. So, dito, mahihirapan na tayong makuha yung range natin. So, since ang focus lang naman natin ay pagkuha ng domain. Okay, so let us try to find the domain of the function pag case 3 naman. So, kapag ang function is in the form of nth root of f of x where n is even. So, meaning to say, kapag may square root, fourth root, sixth root, so on and so forth. So, kapag ganyan, alam naman natin na kapag square root ng negative or fourth root ng negative, sixth root ng negative number ay nagiging imaginary. So, therefore, ang gagawin lang natin dito is that i-restrict natin na dapat yung ating radicand, your f of x here, must not be equal to a negative number. So, therefore, your radicand f of x must be kept greater than equal to 0. So, yan dapat ang ating magiging radicand para maging defined yung ating function. So, kunin natin ang domain ng y is equal to fourth root of x minus 6. So, since even yung 4, so, pasok siya sa case 3. So, again, your f of x must be kept greater than equal to 0. So, x minus 6 must be kept greater than equal to 0. Then transposing that 6, negative 6 on the right side, magiging x must be greater than equal to 6. So this must be the domain of the function. So in interval notation, since 6 is included, i-open natin yung bracket, magiging 6, comma, infinity. So these are the only possible values of x that will make our y defined. So if we try to substitute x is equal to 5, because x is 5 is less than 6, which is excluded from this particular domain. If we try to substitute that 5, this is 5 minus 6 is negative 1. And fourth root of a negative number does not exist, which is an imaginary number. So now, paano makuha ang range ng function? Pwede nating erase sa fourth power. Y to the fourth is equal to x minus 6. Then x is equal to y to the fourth plus 6. So to find the range of the function, since this y to the fourth plus 6 is a polynomial under case 1, so therefore the range is a set of all real numbers. So that is from negative infinity to positive infinity. So let's proceed to another example. So I have here f of x is equal to square root of x squared minus x minus 6. So since that ang square root ay merong 2 doon, which is an even number, so this will fall under case 3 ulit. So x squared minus 6 minus 6 ay x squared minus x minus 6. Sabi natin kanina, your radicand must be kept greater than equal to 0. So factoring this out, para makuha ang critical value, x minus 3, x plus 2 must be greater than equal to 0. So you have here x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So meron tayong critical value na x is equal to 3 and x is equal to negative 2. So kung meron tayong critical value, titingnan natin kung alin yung product. Kasi para maging positive, pwedeng ito positive, positive, pwedeng negative, negative. So paano natin yun magagawa? Para mas madali, pwede tayong gumawa ng table of values. So simulan natin sa mas mababa. Mas mababa ang negative 2 kesa sa 3. So kukuha ako ng values, anything that is less than negative 2. Then, kukunin ko yung value na mas mataas naman dun sa mas mataas na number. X is greater than 3. And any values na greater than negative 2 but less than 3. So, ganun lang ang gagawin natin, ha? So, pipiliin muna natin ang mas mababa. So, since x is negative 2 is less than that 3, so kukuha ako dito ng x is less than negative 2. Tapos, yung mas mataas, lalagay natin dun sa dulo. Greater than that naman. And then lastly, kukuha ako in between. Then get a sample. Kunin natin yung x minus 3, kunin natin ang x plus 2, and then kunin natin ang magiging product. Then get a value or any value that is less than negative 2. Let's say negative 5. Then substitute it here. Negative 5, if x is negative 5, which is less than negative 2, substitute lang natin, negative 5 minus 3 is negative. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative. So again, if x is negative 5, which is less than negative 2, substitute lang natin dun sa ating given. X minus 3, that is negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8, which is negative. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3, which is negative. Then the product of two negative numbers ay positive. So all we need to know is whether the product is positive or negative. So ang kailangan lang natin ay dapat positive kasi ang condition natin sa ating domain must be greater than or equal to 0. Then puntahan naman natin yung pangalawang column. any number in between negative 2 and 3, let's say 0. If x is 0, we substitute. X minus 3, that's 0 minus 3 is negative. 0 plus 2 is positive. Then the product of a negative number and a positive number is negative. Then x is greater than 3. Any number that is greater than 3, let's say 5. Let us substitute 5. 5 minus 3 is positive 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. That's positive. And the product of two positive numbers are positive. So here's the decision. Ano ang magiging decision natin? So, of course, ang condition, x must be or your radicand must be greater than or equal to 0. So, therefore, ang answer natin ay yung parehas na positive. So, ibig sabihin, yung x less than negative 2 in union with x is greater than 3. And, by the way, kailangan din nating makita since equal siya sa 0, which is pwede siyang maging 0, let us try kung included ang negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 becomes 0. Negative multiplied by 0 is 0. So, since ang condition natin can be 0, then i-include natin ang negative 2. Also with 3. So, if x is equal to 3, substitute natin 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 plus 2, multiplied by 2 is 0. Since pwede siya maging 0, i-include din natin ang 0. So, therefore, ang domain natin dito is from negative 2 ay negative infinity to negative 2 included union with included 3 to positive infinity excluded. So this must be the domain of that particular function given. That is case 3. So balikan natin yung kanina. So, yung example number 1 natin, meron tayo dito na negative 2 plus or minus y plus 1. So, since may square root dito, and the only time na magiging defined ito is when y plus 1, yung radicand, must be greater than or equal to 0. So, therefore, y must be greater than equal to negative 1. So, therefore, ang range natin must be greater than equal to negative 1 up to infinity. So, yan ang ating magiging range dyan sa ating given polynomial dyan. So, balik na tayo sa case number 4. So, case number 4 is in the form of nth root. So, ibig sabihin, pinag-combine lang natin yung number 2 at saka yung number 3. Case number 2 and case number 3. Where n is, of course, even. So, again, since may restriction sa denominator, may restriction sa square root, so, ang una muna nating titingnan ay yung x plus 3. So, denominator x plus 3 must not be equal to 0. So, otherwise, magiging undefined yung ating function. So, first restriction, x must not be equal to negative 3. So, that's our first restriction. So, ibig sabihin, all ay pwede except negative 3. But, since meron tayong numerator na square root of 2x minus 5, that should be kept greater than equal to 0. So, ibig sabihin, lahat ng hindi pwede dito, tatanggalin din natin dito. So, 2x minus 5 is greater than or equal sa 0. Then, solving that inequality, tatranspose lang natin yung negative 5 on the right side. So, magiging 2x is greater than equal to 5. Divide both sides by 2. Then, x is greater than equal to 5 halves. So, since ang domain nito ay dapat maging equal lang or greater than 5 halves to positive infinity. So, this must be the domain of this function. Paano yung x must not be equal to negative 3? So, paano yung from negative 3 papunta sa 5 halves? So, hindi na rin siya magiging included since yung 5 halves papunta lang sa infinity ang pwede. So, ika-cancel na ulit natin lahat. So, kumbaga, kung ito yung number line, ito yung negative 3, all ay pwede. Lahat ay pwede except ito. So, maglalagay ako dyan ng whole. Tapos, meron ako ritong 5 halves. Which is, dapat, lahat ng nasa kaliwa nito ay hindi na pwede. So, tatanggalin ko na lahat yan. So, i-include ko na lang yung 5 halves pataas. So, ibig sabihin, does not matter na itong mga nandito since less than siya ng 5/2. So, that is how we solve for the domain of that particular function. Let us try another one. Paano kung binaliktad natin? So, square root of 2x minus 5 over x minus 3. Oops. So, 2x minus 5 over x minus 3. Hindi pa binaliktad. Ginawa lang nating negative 3 yung denominator. So, again, sa denominator, x minus 3 must not be equal to 0. Then, x must not be equal to positive 3. Yung square root of 2x minus 5 must be greater than equal to 0. Then, 2x is greater than equal to 5. Then, x is greater than equal to 5 halves. So, again, kung titingnan natin ito, so, ang domain niyan, sa number line, kung ito yung number line, at ito yung 5 halves, which is 2.5, and 3 is greater than 5 halves, which is supposedly, kung ito lang, defined siya by 3. So, ibig sabihin, maglalagay lang ako ng whole kay 3. And all the rest are included. So, meaning to say, pwede kong i-express ang domain ko in interval notation as 5 halves, 3, excluded, union with 3, infinity. So, this must be the answer there. So, that is for case number 4. So, what if binaliktad natin? Yung nasa ilalim naman yung square root. So, again, yung denominator natin na 2x minus 5 must be greater than or equal to 0 kapag may square root. But since nasa denominator na siya, tatanggalin natin yung 0. So, dapat si 2x minus 5 instead of greater than equal to 0, since nasa denominator siya, i-exclude na natin yung 0. So, therefore, this must be equal to 2x is greater than 5. Then, x is greater than 5 halves. So, restriction sa taas, wala na, kasi polynomial naman yan. So, therefore, ang aking domain, dyan, is 5 halves, 5 halves, infinity. Open parenthesis, since hindi pwedeng maging 5/2. So, this must be the domain of that particular function. Kasi hindi pwede siyang maging 5 halves. If it becomes 5 halves, magiging 0 ang denominator, which is a no-no. So, let us try to solve for our second example. So, same lang ito pala dun sa taas kasi wala naman tayong restriction. So, the domain is the same as that of what we have solved kanina. So, x must be greater than 5 halves. So, pwede naman ang 3. Kasi magiging ano naman to. So, magiging 0 lang naman siya. Define din naman siya dito. So, that is 5 halves, infinity. So, how about the other cases? So, what if we are looking for the domain of ln of x? So, by definition, ang logarithmic functions, this can only be possible, or the natural logarithm only exists if and only if x is greater than equal to 0. Kasi kapag ang ln ng 0 does not exist, ang ln ng negative number does not exist. So therefore, ang domain ng function na to is greater than 0 by definition and by its property. So f of x is equal to ln of x, ang kanyang domain is 0 to infinity. So the domain of this function, by definition and by its property, that x must be greater than 0. So kung meron akong ln of x minus 5 as your given f of x, so dapat your x minus 5 must be greater than 0. So x is greater than 5. So therefore, I have a domain 5 up to infinity excluded. So because it can't be 0. So for 3 raised to x, for any exponential function, kahit anong value ang ilagay mo dyan sa ating exponent, it will always be, or your f of x will always be defined. So therefore, your domain there, x is a set of all real numbers. So meaning to say, negative infinity to positive infinity. Because once you substitute any value in between this interval, your function of x will always be defined. And lastly, I have here f of x is equal to sine x. So sine x is actually a circular function. So since it is a circular function, kahit anong value ng x dyan ay pwede. Kasi paulit-ulit lang namang nagaganap yung value ng sine of x. Kasi nga, circular function siya. So therefore, x must be a set of all real numbers, mapa negative or mapa positive. Kasi diba, when the angle is measured counterclockwise, it is positive. When the angle is measured clockwise, it is negative. So therefore, x must also be all real numbers, or from negative infinity to positive infinity. So that will be all for this particular session.